Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity. Bare necessity, but simple bare necessity.
Hey there, it's Brie Bear and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be doing a board wrap-up that I'm so excited for because these two characters are two of my all-time favorite characters. Okay, are you ready? We're going to be talking about Scarlet Witch and Bucky. Two of the best MCU characters. Here is Bucky's board. We're going to start with him because he only has 2 books to talk about. So, first we're going to talk about the group book for the month that these boards came out, and that is April's group book, The Once and Future, which is by Alex E. Harrow. So, this completed the prompts. Memory loss, near-death experience, set in the past, and manipulation. This book follows 3 sisters who had some pretty rough experiences that kind of drove them apart, both physically and emotionally. So after that, they end up kind of accidentally finding each other again, and they decide to kind of, not entirely by choice, but partially they also kind of decide to kind of try to reignite magic and witchcraft. Salem, kind of, but it's like an alternate Salem. Representation includes LGBTQ, incomplete education, BIPOC, visual impairment, and disability. Archetypes include witchcraft, siblings, specifically sisters, Salem, wanted fugitive, mill workers, book lover, fairy tales. It has like retold versions of the fairy tales that we all, are familiar with. Secret society, grudges, sibling drama, betrayal, lies, owls, families, library, secret rooms, and there's a brief encounter with a talking animal. Themes include siblings, abandonment, sacrifice, feminism, loss, and grief. Keep in mind that the feminism, not the best, and this a very white feminism. So keep that in mind. It's character-driven, dark tone, kind of in the middle with the hard, soft magic system thing. The world structure is pretty solid though. She is very descriptive. Let's see. Themes are pretty strong, and it's a pretty balanced action narrative dialogue mix. Things I disliked. There's villainization of religion, which is a personal thing for me. Not a fan. I understand that it is going to be present in books, but I don't like to see it so often as I do. I was not surprised to see it in this book based on the concept, so it didn't bother me as much. There was also stereotyping, which was very bothersome to me. Magic was being genderized. This whole Adam and Eve curse thing and like all that kind of stuff, it was just kind of like, no thank you. Some irrelevant conversations that didn't have to do with what was happening at the moment, but they were just thrown in to continue bringing up certain points, specifically things about race and some feminism things that weren't relevant to this specific conversation at hand, that were kind of being thrown in or like forced in to make a certain point by the author, but didn't fit with the conversation and the point that the character should have been trying to make. So it was just kind of like a little bit disjointed at times, in that she was trying to like say a certain thing or do a certain thing, but she didn't put it at the right place. Like it didn't fit in the flow of the conversation. Like it didn't make sense that was what the character brought up. The romance of one of the romances was not the best. Just in general, there were some choices that I wasn't the hugest fan of, and some sections that didn't quite fit. Some things felt a little overly explained at times, but things I liked. Amazing character and relationship development, particularly with the sisters. Beautifully well done. As a person with a sister, I really loved it in that element and aspect. I also really loved how artfully it was woven into the story. It was like, not like, oh, this scene is going to be character development when you started the scene. It kind of just wove its way into what was happening in a way that felt natural, and I really enjoyed. The prose itself absolutely gorgeous. The world and the magic system itself, really loved. I wish we had gotten to see more of the library put together in this really artful way, where she would change from one sister to another, and she would use threading of the last line to pull those concepts through into the next passage, and it was just so artfully done and gorgeous. The sisters have like a magical connection to one another where they can kind of feel what's going on with the other sister a little bit, which we see a lot with sibling in fantasy. We see a lot of that with siblings or with romantic relationships, where you can feel what's happening to the other person. But this time it actually was explained why that is the case. And it actually was like in a way that made sense, which we've never seen before. A way that really made sense, why they could feel the connection. Like, we only see that in a couple of stories. Cassandra Clare did it with the parabatai thing, and it made sense there, but it wouldn't have made sense in other contexts. Like, the parabatai makes sense if they can feel things because they have that magical connection. Same thing here. They have a magical connection that actually explains later on. It's towards the end of the book where it's more explained, but still, it made sense. Yeah, okay, yes. Also, I was watching another group's live show, and they were talking about the name of the book club. They were talking about how the pacing wasn't the best, and I can see that. The pacing was not, it really should have been a duology at least, because of the pacing. Like, it was too much to have all together. They should have spread it out into at least 2 books. So yes, that is everything for the Once and Future Witches. Let's move on. So, Ghost of the Shadow Market by Cassandra Clare and Friends. This completed the prompts. A bisexual main character, multiple timelines, hands or arms on the cover, and a grumpy sunshine friendship. It has representation for a Chinese Japanese character, like she's both, Lily is. And then we have disability, a caregiver, LGBTQ, and adoption. Archetypes for the 20th century and the 21st century. Multiple timelines, London, Tennessee. Hey, I live in Tennessee, and Cassandra Clare wrote about Tennessee. Hey, I didn't think she would ever write about me, but here she is in Tennessee. Okay, I'm done. New York and Los Angeles, book lover, truth potion, a dog, platonic friendship, a Great Depression, carnival, market, maze, World War II, unrequited love, and ghosts. So honestly, there's a pretty big paragraph of dislikes, and it's really because there were a lot of things that were not my favorite in this particular installment. And that, okay, here we go. So there were a few moments that felt outside of the character. Bill at one point says something, this little kid Bill, that didn't fit him at all. And also Katerina at one point is like juggling something in the market, like a bunch of random things in the market, and that doesn't suit her at all. I'm sorry, it doesn't. That's not her style. That's not anything that she would ever do. So there were some comments that weren't explained, but that maybe will be explained in another book, perhaps. Maybe, you know, but still, like, there were just a couple things that weren't explained or like delved into any further. Okay, so we always have these scenes where a mundane sees one of our shadow hunter characters and like stares at them and gawks. It's usually the girls staring and gawking at the boys, and like being overwhelmed, or like the scene with Jace in the supermarket and the girls like trying to get his phone number and stuff. Ugh, I hate those scenes so much. I can't even explain to you how much I hate them. They're unnecessary, they're stupid, they're ridiculous, they're pointless, and they are disgusting, to be honest. There was some unnecessary stuff that was like kind of not the best in my opinion. Like, I get what she was trying to do, but sometimes when she's trying to like do this thing where she like tells about like how these random people that we were never going to hear about again were affected by such and such thing that happened, sometimes when she does that, it's not my favorite. But like, really this time it was not my favorite, mainly because it was like extreme things that were happening that were not pleasant at all to read about, but like were also like didn't make sense, and it was just weird. Like, it just didn't feel right. Like, I don't know, particularly this one thing was kind of like offensive. So there were a few world related things that did not make sense, but it just bothered me that like there was the inconsistency within this book, like within this particular book, not within her books, within the hundreds of pages, you know, on that shelf, within the thousands of pages that are on that shelf right there, not there, but within this one book that's less than 1,000. But in like all of those thousands of pages, we haven't had that kind of level of inconsistency. So I don't know what happened with this particular book, but so I don't know. Like, I usually don't have as many critiques as I did with this one, and I feel like a lot of it has to do with just it needed, I think there were either too many things going on, and she just wasn't focused enough when she was writing these, or maybe because they were released so separately that they weren't, like, she wasn't able to take the time to really work through every single one of them before she released the first one. That could have been a problem that caused this to not really work for me, as well as some of the other, like the other short story collections work really well for me. This one did not work as well for me. I kind of think that part of it too was the fact that we had a couple different things, and it was more like just a collection of things to do with the shadow market than singularly following one thing. Like, yeah, we're partially following for a lot of it, we're following Jim and Tessa's trying to find the lost Carindel, but still. Anyways, I'm done that. I need to move on. I need to get things done here. That's everything for Bucky. Let's move on to Scarlet Witch. For Scarlet Witch, I did use the Once and Future Witches for, let's see, includes a family history, superpowered siblings, has a witch, red on the cover. Pillow Thoughts, Volume 3. So this completed the prompt. Experiment with a genre you don't read often. I have poetry, I've read poetry, I just don't have as much experience with poetry as I do regular prose. Themes this explores is wanting to be with someone, missing an ex, love, new love, first dates, unrequited love, cleansing or cleaning your house, and cleaning your life, cleansing your life, mental illness, doubt, fear, and anxiety, representation for LGBTQ, its own voices for the author. It's very free form, it's romance heavy, it's more personal than political, it's more secular than spiritual, it's both interpersonal and intrapersonal. It's both expressing and motivating. So like expressing experiences and feelings and motivating you, the reader, through an experience, or like, you know, giving you encouraging words. It is categorized, it's organized into sections. More musical or more choppy, it's kind of a mixture. More literal or more figurative, it's more literal. Tones, light or dark, this one is a little bit on the light side. I don't know if this is my last attempt with this series. I think there are two more, a number 4 and a number 5. I don't know if I want to spend my time reading them. I know it doesn't take super long because it's poetry, but I'd rather try another poet that maybe will work better for me than spend 2 more books reading a poet that isn't quite hitting the mark for me. Writing your novel from start to finish by Joseph Bates completed the prompt to expand your mind. This is a writing craft book, and I started working on it like 2 months ago, and I meant to have it, you know, just be on the side something, and, you know, I wasn't really thinking about where it would fit on boards and stuff like that. I didn't think about that at all really when I was, you know, because I had picked it up a couple different times intending to read it through, and then I kept putting it down and putting off writing related things, and now was the time that I was just going to push through and read the whole thing, and I did. And I didn't know where I was going to put it until it dawned on me, and I was like, oh, this could fit on a character board. I must push through and read the whole thing. That will be the perfect motivation for me to actually get it done. So that is why I was really able to push through the whole thing. Honestly, I really think this should have focused more on just the starting your novel and focused on that, because that I feel like is where this really worked the most, because it's more honestly to me about what to think about and what to know and what to plan and how to prepare before you start writing. Because to me, like everything within the Act 2, Act 3 stuff was kind of just like, keep going, keep doing this and keep doing that, and don't forget to not screw this part up. And so it was pretty good in some ways, but I feel like it wasn't like the best craft book in the entire world. But I do think that there is value to it. I think it can be helpful, especially I think maybe if I were to go back after I like in the midst of writing a draft, go back and reread Act 2 and Act 3 sections after I finish as I finish the first act, and as I start writing the second act, reread that second act section and see if that helps to be more effective when I have my head kind of more in that space. Because right now where I'm at in my writing process is I am really plotting out and planning the book that I'm working on, or the series that I'm working on. I think it's going to be a trilogy. That's what feels like it's going to be, but honestly I'm starting to think that maybe I'm going to adjust a tiny bit, partially because of some of the very insightful information in this book. So it did do some good things, so I give it a 4-star. I read My Oxford Year by Julie Whalen. This completed the prompts: a female with a dramatic arc and a good romantic arc. To be honest, the arcs were not necessarily the most dramatic ever, but like they were all right enough that I considered including them, because especially it takes place over the course of a year. It's about a woman spending a year in Oxford, and her life changes because of that year. And I mean, like, she grows and changes a little bit. She learns a lot. I think the main character does learn a lot. Travel, Europe, graduate school, Oxford, Rhodes Scholarship, unrequited love, year abroad, literature, book nerds, poetry, the not looking for a relationship type of pre-romance kind of thing, the friends with benefits type thing. Themes include choices, unpredictability of life, communication, and loss and grief. It's character driven. It's kind of in between for a light and dark tone. It goes back and forth depending on which section of the plot you're in. The world structure is stronger. The themes are kind of in the middle, and it's more narrative dialogue than action. Dislikes. The main character could be really annoying at times. She was very entitled sometimes, annoying and rude sometimes. I just didn't always like her. Stereotyping, I dialect, which I hate so much. I hate, double hate, loathe entirely. There were some basic choices with the plot that weren't necessarily my favorite. There were some tactless moments and comments throughout. Every once in a while it was just, you know, not the best every once in a while. And this came out in 2018. There were also some inaccurate statements regarding education system in the US. In general, it was not very good. It was basically saying that like everybody that goes to public school is poor. Some good lines and some funny moments. The character and relationship development throughout was probably the best part about this book, and there was a pretty good plot twist in here at some point. A 4 out of 5. The center prompt for Scarlet Witch's board was to do some self-care, so I did that. I did a face mask and read while my face mask was going, and I had my coffee at the ready, and you know, just kind of hung out for a while. Thank you guys so much for watching. I hope you have a great rest of your day or night, whatever time it is for you. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and the notification bell down below so that you will be notified every time I post new videos. I will see you guys soon. Peace out, Bear Scouts.
Look for the bare necessities, the simple bare necessities. Forget about your worries and your stress. I mean a bare necessities, that's why a bear can rest at ease with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, with just the bare necessities of life. Yeah, man.